Good evening, everybody. Welcome here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. We're here with an episode of favorites. I've been looking forward to this one for a couple of weeks. I got so excited that I recorded the entire video, and then I didn't, before it had a chance to get saved to my computer, I erased it. So now I got to do it again. So calm down. Anyways, I don't often do this. This is a ranking, but I've been looking forward to doing the ranking of this particular band for some time now. I got the last album somewhere a couple weeks ago and decided that it's time to do it. And of course, we're talking about the Beatles. Now, this album won't be in the ranking because it's a compilation, but it's a good album anyways, the Beatles. We're doing the Beatles today. We're having a little Beatles over to do today. So I just gotta reorganize my brain now that I have to do all that again. It was a fairly lengthy video, so maybe I'll cut her down a little bit. So the Beatles, for most of you, there isn't probably anybody on the planet who has not heard of the Beatles, are often considered the greatest rock band in history. I don't feel qualified to argue against that. They're not my particular favorite, although I do love them quite a bit. So we're going to do the ranking. We're going to do this the way I always do it, which is from my least favorite to my most favorite, or worst to first, or in their case, 13th to number 1. There are 13. There is a compilation that they often include, at least Wikipedia includes it as a part of their discography. I'm not going to include it here. I have the other 13 that I like, and I'm going to rank them. It was a very tough ranking, one of the toughest, because everything is, at least the middle stuff, from about, I would say about 11 through to about 6. So what's about 5 or 6 of their albums, really close, only separated by a hair, really. Not much difference, and sometimes I wasn't quite sure. I'd say, well, then I would look at all the songs and compare it to the other songs. Maybe there'd be a song that would stick out that I thought was better than anything on the other album. Sometimes there was just too many songs on one album, and the other album maybe only had 2 or 3. But for most Beatles albums, they're proliferated with some great songs. So we're going to start by giving you my least favorite, like I said, to my most favorite. These are only my opinions, by the way. So if you don't share them, that's fine. You'll have your own opinions of the Beatles. And you won't be wrong no matter which one you pick, because they're all great. Well, except for maybe this one. So the first one out of the gate will be the Yellow Submarine from the Beatles, number 13. Basically, it's a cartoon, what they would call a soundtrack or recording or a movie track or whatever you want to call it, of the movie The Yellow Submarine. So the back half of the album for me, from about track 7 through to the last track, are just basically soundtracks from the movie, which, they're okay, but I'm not really listening to them for that. All You Need Is Love and Yellow Submarine are probably the 2 best tracks on the album. Both are good tracks, but they're also on one of the other albums as well. So the rest of the tracks, not really feeling any great need to like them. So this to me is easily the worst of the albums. Still a passable album, but it's easily the 13th. So number 12, Number 12 might surprise a few people. It's their final studio album, Let It Be. The album itself is great, like the cover. I love the cover. It's one of my favorite Beatles covers. And then you have this inside pictures of them too. Fantastic with John and Paul and Ringo and George there. Really good. The back is good too, as the front. Yeah, so I love these little folding books that almost all my Beatles albums are like that. I got them in a kind of a set for next to nothing. So I think I paid for about 5 of the albums. I paid like $5, right? So that's a pretty good deal. This one has some good stuff on it, Across the Universe. I like that. The Long and Winding Road kind of like Let It Be. They're both McCartney songs, I believe. They're a little bit too windy for me. They take too long to sing, I think. Get Back is a good track. Yeah, other than that, there's no terrible songs on here. It just overall isn't as good as the other albums coming up. So this is number 12, but easily twice as good as Yellow Submarine. Next up is With the Beatles. This is, I think it's better than Let It Be. It has a few more tracks I like. I think that's probably why I chose it. It Won't Be Long. Yeah, I like that. Please, Mr. Postman, a Rock and Roll, Roll Over Beethoven, both great tracks. You Really Got a Hold on Me. I like that version of their version of that song. Yeah, it's a good album. I think it just has a few more songs on it that I like than is on Let It Be. So that's why it's kind of the number 11. So now it moves up to there's a group of albums here, about five or six deep, that are all like a hair apart. Just, it's depending on what day of the week, I guess, is today's day of the week. This album's going to come number 10. Beatles for Sale, lots of good stuff here. I'm a Loser, Rock and Roll Music, another Chuck Berry song. I Follow the Sun. I like this track. It's different. It's not as similar as a lot of the other Beatles stuff. 8 Days a Week is easily my favorite on here. I love this. This is such a Beatles sound, right? Every Little Thing, do do do. Yeah, absolutely killer track as well. There's some stuff here that I sometimes like, sometimes don't like, but for overall, I think it's a better album than With the Beatles. Beatles for Sale is just a little bit better, but they're all young. This one here, of course, has a book opening as well. Nice shot of them here. I think this is a nice picture of them. Still fairly young here. Back part with those Beatle hairstyles, especially like Ringo Starr. That's classic looking Beatles sound look to it. Yeah, great album. Comes here at number 10. Number 9. Might surprise a few people. This is the White Album. If you can see the Beatles logo right there. Let's put up as close as I can see it. Yeah, you should be able to see it now. So the White Album is a double album. Lots of good tracks here, but it's kind of a mishmash of stuff, I think. It's got a little bit of different sounds from lots of different Beatles sounds to it. Back in USR, of course, is a great song. I like Dear Prudence as well. Obla Di Obla Da, that's one of my daughter's favorite tracks, but I think she likes the version on one of the other albums. Or maybe it isn't on the other albums. Yeah, I guess maybe I'm just imagining things. Anyways, she likes that track, and so that has a bit of a good spot for me. Rocky Raccoon, every time I see this or hear this, it reminds me of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Don't Pass Me By, another good track. Lots of Helter Skelters also on here for those who like that kind of heavy stuff, and both Revolutions 1 and 9. So yeah, there's a lot of really top-end stuff here, a lot of maybe not so top-end stuff here, and a lot of stuff that's kind of obscure and not as known. This album has a lot of different sounds to it. Probably could have made it a one album. It might have been better. Hard to say. But I'm also still fairly new to this album. It's probably the only album here that I haven't had extensive listening to at some point or another. And so maybe it's not as fair to it to rank it here, but it's part of the discography, so it's got to go. And it's going here at number 9. Next up is number 8. Please Please Me. This is a good, solid album. I think it's better than the White Album, mostly because of some of the tracks on it. Things like I Saw Her Standing There, Love Me Do, which is one of the great early Beatles songs. Baby, It's You. Yeah, I like that too. Do You Want to Know My Secret? This is another one, like Love Me Do. It's part of that collection of songs that just, when you hear it, you know the Beatles instantly. Twist and Shout, of course, they're a great version of it as well. Yeah, lots of that good poppy feel that I like that poppy era of the Beatles and their psychedelic era. I kind of like both eras. I don't like the poppy era as much, but I do like a lot of their early stuff, and this is one of those albums. So this is going to come here at number 8. Number 7, Help, another soundtrack here. This one's still got the sticker on it. It's still in my haven't listened to album collection, although I'm very familiar with this album. Help is a great tune, of course. You gotta hide yourself away. I really like the sound of that song. It's just an underrated but well-known song. You got to lose that girl. Yeah, another classic kind of early Beatles get up and go songs, if you want to call them. Ticket to Ride, always have liked that. I think it's one of their great tunes that's well known. Tell Me What You See, I like that tune. And of course, this has Yesterday on it, which is, for many people, think of it as their best ever song. A little bit too almost ballady for me, and it tends to go on a little bit long, but it's still a great song. And this album has a lot of that on it. So Help coming here at number 7. Number 6, we're getting down now. This album would have been a top 5 at one point, but recently been playing one album in my playlist, and it's kind of pushed this one down a bit. So Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Many feel that this is the beginning of prog music here, or at least concept albums started here with this album, which changed, well, basically the Beatles always changing music, right? And this is a great one. This one has, of course, a booklet opening like some of mine do. That's a nice shot of them front, back, and the inside cover is fantastic as well. They're still fairly young here, though. There's no old age going on yet. Some of the tracks on here, of course, the first 3 or 4 on here are well-known, well-liked. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, I like that one. With a little help from my friends, it was probably originally my favorite Beatles song when I first discovered them, back when my uncle, who was a huge Beatles fan, was playing them. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Yeah, another great song from that time period as well. Getting Better, Fixing a Hole. There's a lot of, a little bit of filler. Well, I wouldn't say they're filler, but they're lesser known songs here that I'm not as big on. Lovely Rita's on here, great tune. And then you've got the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band reprise, and then of course Day in the Life, which is absolutely killer. This particular album has a documentary on the album as well, so it's quite good. So this strong album. Number 6. Number 5, we're getting into those. This one just edged out Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band because I've been listening to it a little bit more than that one. It's got the first 2 tracks, Drive My Car and Norwegian Wood, are 2 excellent. Norwegian Wood's probably one of my favorite Beatles songs. Nowhere Man fits up in that category as well. Michelle is really good song. Really good song. Girl, another underrated track, but I think deserves mentioning here. In My Life, another good one. Run for Your Life. If I Need Someone, yeah, another strong one. This book opens up as well. You got some nice shots on the back here. That looks like a Beatles scene for sure. The Rubber Soul album, kind of the first of this psychedelic feel to it. And on the inside, you got them jamming here in a session. So this is kind of the beginning of that psychedelic era, although they still have some of that kind of poppy era, 2 of them as well. This was a 66 release. Number 5. Number 4, the last of the soundtracks, A Hard Day's Night, and easily my favorite of those soundtracks. The song Hard Day's Night, iconic. The guitar riff in that is iconic. The song is iconic. If I Fell in Love with You, yeah, great tune. I'm Happy Just to Dance with You. It's an underrated song, but it's just a killer, classic Beatles sound. Can't Buy Me Love, another one, well-known song. Anytime at All, that one is fantastic. You Can't Do That. This is a little bit of a different Probably wouldn't go well with the politically correct people, but that's fine. I like it anyways. It's absolutely killer. This whole song is just like a lot of upbeat, up-tempo type love songs by the Beatles, who I think are best when they're doing that. The top 3 albums. So the number 3 album here would have easily been number 1. For years it was number 1, but it's been replaced since I started collecting them. The Beatles' Abbey Road. I do apologize for the missing cover here. I guess I had it too long and somebody borrowed the cover to look at it and it's gone. Fortunately, I got the shirt on so you can see what the cover looked like. Very iconic cover, probably one of the most iconic rock covers in history. Lots of really good, solid stuff. The first half of the album is just proliferated with really good, solid stuff. The back half, okay stuff. Come Together, well-known track, been played by other bands as well. Maxwell Silver Hammer, one of my favorite Beatles songs. Oh Darling, this is a very John Lennon sounding tune for sure. Octopus's Garden, great tune, probably the best of the ones that Ringo Starr sang. Here Comes the Sun, one of my favorite George Harrison numbers as well. And then you've got a bunch of other stuff on the backside. It's not maybe as well known, but pretty solid. So the Beatles' Abbey Road coming number 3. Number 2, Magical Mystery Tour. So it's an American release, obviously, but they put this together. Lots of stuff here that maybe wasn't played on other albums, so they put it together as kind of a collection. But a great sounding album from top to bottom. Pretty much love all the tracks on here. The Magical Mystery Tour, Blue Jay Way, The Fool on the Hill, great tune. Your Mother Should Know, great underrated tune. I Am a Walrus for years was after a little help from my friend when I started getting into the Beatles a bit. This was my favorite tune, I Am a Walrus. I still like it a lot too. Strawberry Fields Forever, very psychedelic, love that. Penny Lane gets a lot of play, but for some reason I don't think it gets a lot of attention, which is unfortunate because I think it's a great tune. Baby, You're a Rich Man, yeah, fantastic tune. And All You Need of Love is on this as well. Just fantastic. It's got top to bottom strong album, number 2. Number 1, Revolver. I don't think there was going to be any doubt as to this being number 1 for those of you who watch my channel. There are some songs in here I don't care for as much, but there's a lot of stuff on here that's just top shelf for me. Taxman, probably my favorite George Harrison song. Eleanor Rigby, one of my favorite McCartney songs. I'm Only Sleeping, it's a good song. Love You Too, this is one of my favorite George Harrison tracks. Yellow Submarine, the Ringo Starr track here, of course. You Said, She Said, John Lennon, great again. Good Day Sunshine is a little, it's not one of my favorite tracks, but it's a well-known song by these guys, no doubt about it. Dr. Robert, this is probably one of my favorite underrated songs. It doesn't get nearly the attention that a lot of other Beatles songs do, but I think it's one of their best. I Want to Tell You, good track. Got to Get You Into My Life. Very close to being one of my favorite McCartney tracks for sure. And in fact, this album probably is my favorite of the songs that Paul does on this album, are probably my favorite of his songs overall. And then it ends up with my favorite track by the Beatles. It's been my favorite track for at least a decade now, and that's Tomorrow Never Knows. Very psychedelic, very progressive, kind of heavy in some ways too, and really interesting sound. The backwards playing guitar is fantastic. Ringo Starr is prominent on that song too. Very heavy beat. I love it. So now I'm going to give them to you all front to back again. So from top to bottom this time. Just repeating them all. This time I won't erase it because I don't really want to do it a third time. Kind of wears on you after a bit. So we've got number 1, Revolver. Number 2, The Magical Mystery Tour. Number 3, The Beatles, Abbey Road. Number 4, Hard Day's Night. Number 5, Rubber Soul. Number 6, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. That was number 7, The Beatles for Sale. No, sorry, The Beatles Help Album. I saw the sticker, it threw me off for some reason. Number 8, Please Please Me from the Beatles. The White Album is number 9. If I can get it up close there. Yep, the White Album, number 9. Number 10, Beatles for Sale. Number 11, With the Beatles. So young back then, eh? Now, Let It Be is number 12, and last, but definitely least in this case, The Yellow Submarine from the Beatles. So, I thank you for coming and watching this episode of Ranking the Albums, featuring the Beatles on my favorite show on Wednesday night. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please hit the like and subscribe. That helps me a lot. If you want to be notified of next Wednesday's episode, please hit the notification bell above my head. And if you've gone to give me your Beatles in the order you like them, you can put those in the comment section below. If you'd rather just make comments about the albums, you can do that. Or if you want to say something about something I said about the Beatles, you can do that. I find the Beatles have more connoisseurs than any other band. People just love them, and they're connoisseurs on them. They know every detail, and I can understand why. Great band. No band has put out more single hits than these guys have. Like I said, some people would say they're the greatest band ever. They're not my personal favorite, but I can see how people came up with that. Anyways, I hope to see you all next week on Favorites. Take care and have yourself a good evening. Goodbye.